Yo, what's up? This is Jacoby from Papa Roach.
This is Ryan Leaf.
This is Rich Roll, and you're listening to Sober Guy Radio.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks to Humans for bringing us in, and thank you to you for supporting the show. Today's guest is Freddy Negrete, and man, I'm super stoked today to chat with Freddy and introduce him to you guys and let you hear a bit about his story. Freddy is a legendary tattoo artist. He's best known for his pioneering black and gray style tattooing. He really honed in on this while serving time in a series of correctional facilities during a youth mired in abuse, gang life, and drug addiction. His prison-style designs eventually found their way out onto the streets of East LA, and in 1980, he created a piece that earned him Tattoo Artist of the Year award. Freddy's been featured in all kinds of shows, documentaries, including Tattoo Nation, the History Channel's Mark series. He's been on Spike TV's Ink Master as a guest judge. Numerous online and print video publications. He's also worked as a tattoo consultant on over 30 Hollywood films, including Batman, Blade, Con Air, Austin Powers. Got a plethora of work. He currently works at the Shamrock Social Club on the Sunset Strip. I'm kind of bummed I didn't stop by in there now when I was down there a couple months back and pop in and say what's up. Freddy, really honored to have you on the show today, man. I'm super stoked to have you share your story. And hopefully someone out there listening today, something resonates with them that can help them get through a time that might be a tough day, or maybe it's a good day. Who knows, man? What's up, man? Thank you for joining the show today, Freddy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. This is great.
I know I got a little bit of energy today, man. I think I drank a little bit too much coffee, but I'm sure you've had those days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess one of the so let's kind of start here, man. Steve Jones, and let me give some props to Steve because he originally reached out. I know he kind of co-wrote the book with you. He's a commissioned screenwriter and playwright. How did you and Steve hook up?
Well, a few years back, one of the things that I was involved with is called CGA, Criminal and Gangsters Anonymous. And I don't know if you've heard of that. It's something that started in prisons, and it was focused on more of the addiction of criminal behavior and gang activity. And anyway, so I was speaking at a CGA meeting, and one of my friends that I was in rehab with, Steve, was doing some research for a project he was working on about her grandmother, because Steve is he's from London, but he lives in Austria, and so he was over here doing that, and she knew that he was in recovery as well, and invited him to the meeting, and him and I, and so he heard me speak, and then we all went out for some coffee after, and we were chatting, and I mentioned to him that I was seriously thinking about writing a book. I felt like I had some things that to share. Some stories to tell. I definitely got stories, and he told me, well, he never did any work like that, but maybe he might be able to steer me in the right direction. On how I might be able to accomplish that. And anyways, so that weekend he was driving up to San Francisco, and Steve says that it just hit him like a ton of bricks on his way up there. The next day he called me, he goes, you know what? I'm going to write your book. I'm going to write it. And so we went on to work about 6 years together on this project.
Wow, 6 years?
Yeah, it took a while.
That's tight.
And he's a great writer, I got the stories to tell, but I'm not that good of a writer. So he really made it happen for me. He's amazing. and you know, we went through every up and down, you know, every stumbling block that you can face.
Yeah.
And as far as getting an agent, getting a publisher, you know, these things were all a struggle, but you know, in the end, God came through for us, and it became a reality. And the name of the book is, you want me to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's Smile Now, Cry Later, Guns, Gangs, and Tattoos, My Life in Black and Gray.
Yeah, guys, and it's a super cool book. It's got a lot of great artwork in it. It's kind of got, at least to me, it's kind of got like that vintage feel to it. So really cool. So check it out, and we'll make sure that we put all the links to the book and all of Freddy's work that he's also done in the show notes. So you can always go there and check that out. One of the things that you said, man, is you know, you got the stories, and you know, Steve kind of helped shape those, I guess, into the book. I kind of feel like that too. Like as an artist, it's hard for us to sometimes express how we want to tell a story, or how we want to kind of create that idea and actually tell it. And so it is cool to have good support around us to kind of help come in and work out those kinks. Is that something that was a huge backbone of the book for you too?
Yeah, definitely, and for Steve as well, because he had never done this is the first time he had written anything like this, and so he was very meticulous about it, you know, and he put his whole heart and all his skill and talent into it. So, and it came out amazing. Everybody loves it, and he's going to move on. I think he's in the middle of writing his own biography right now. He's got a great story as well, and he's in recovery, you know, ex-heroin addict. And
well, nice. So, that's kind of cool, I guess. With that said, I don't know too much about you know, Steve's story himself, but man, we'll just kind of open that invitation up. Maybe we can have Steve on the show next. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, he's great. And then, you know, he also, you know, in our working together, you know, it's just like everything. We were just constantly on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, I accepted every suggestion he made, and vice versa. So it was a great working experience with somebody who really didn't have much knowledge of life out here in East LA, and you know, but he learned. He even he made trips out here. It's funny, you know. I took him to you know, some of the old neighborhood spots, you know, and got him a ride along with the sheriffs into the hood, you know, got him a tour into the county jail. You got to see the cell where I was at, and you know, it was a great experience.
So how long? And I think we'll back up a little bit, but since you mentioned that, how long were you incarcerated for? I know there's a couple stints, right? So like, you know, total.
Yeah, you know, well, you know, the main thing when I was young, you know, when I was a juvenile, I was just in constant trouble.
Yeah.
And so, but I do remember this, that from the age of 12 until I got out of youth authority when I was about 22, the longest period of time that I was out would be 2 months. I was never out longer than 2 months. So I pretty much spent my young life incarcerated, you know.
Wow.
And then, but once I became a tattoo artist, and those things, a lot of things changed for me, and I didn't end up going back to prison until I was like 50 years old.
Wow. When? Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Huh?
It was so funny because, you know, like it was inside that, you know, that I developed my tattoo ability, and you know, and I made great strides, you know, and in the industry, and then all of a sudden at 50 years old, I find tattooing for soup.
Oh man, that's crazy.
You know, so
what when did your drug use, or when did drugs become introduced to you? Like, how old were you, and how did that play a role in you, you know, going down that path of gangs and getting in trouble?
Well, actually, so first I was heavily involved with the gang and the gang activity and stuff like that. We kind of frowned at heroin use. So when I was
Yeah.
young, like I was like, oh, I would never stick a needle in my arm. And then we'd see the older homeboys, when they would go on heroin,
Uh-huh.
they'd become disconnected with our gang activity. Like all of a sudden because back then, they could pull you over, and if you had needle marks and your eyes were, dilated, you could go to jail for under the influence, and they do an automatic 90 days. They don't do that anymore, but back
Huh.
then, that's what they do. So now all of a sudden, the older guys, when they'd be on heroin, they were always in the cut and just somewhere nodding out.
Yeah.
Never wanted to get involved with any of the illegal activities that we were doing, and the worst thing was they'd be fraternizing with the enemy too. Like the other heroin addicts.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, nothing was important, just heroin. So we could see those. I saw all those things, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But then when I was about 17 years old, under a little peer pressure with some of my older homeboys, and and I tried a shot of heroin, and I got sick. All I did was throw up all night, and it just strengthened my resolve. So I drank and partied, and smoked, things like that. But it wasn't until after I became a tattoo artist and got married and got settled down that all of a sudden I started using heroin. And I continue to use it on and off.
Like, would you say that? I mean, was there a specific reason, or a lot of us just like to get high too? I mean, I'm sure that's a component of it, the actual physical feeling of it. But would you say that after, I mean, you kind of got this career established, you're kind of getting after it, you're married, you have a life, but you're still going back to, to using. Was there a specific reason, or was it more just the fact of the addiction itself just kind of starts to take over?
Yeah, I never even thought of it about the addiction part of it. For me, it was it kind of like once I did it, once I got high, because the situation I was in, it was before me and my wife. Her mother had this big 6-bedroom house, and so I lived there with her until we saved money to buy our own house, and then my brother-in-law and her sister lived there also. And he was a homeboy, and he was also a heroin addict. So he kind of introduced me to it. But for me, it felt like something like it was enhancing my good life. That's the way I felt.
Yeah.
Like everything was going good. Like I had always been a loser, a gangster and a thug, and just always locked up. Now all of a sudden, I had a good job, and I was creating, and using my art ability, and I had a car, and just a wife. Things were looking really good, and it just, when I got high on heroin, it just seemed to make it feel even better. That's the way it started. And so I would and even after that, when I got strung out, and what would happen, I'd get strung out, I'd get on the methadone program, and I'd do a methadone thing, and I'd stop. And then I would be a chipper, I would just at family barbecues and picnics and, different events seemed to make it more funner for me, and then, but then I'd start doing it once a week, on the Sunday, then Saturday and Sunday, and then Wednesday. And then the next thing I'd be doing it every day.
It's like that classic like progression of it. You think, oh, I got this under control. It's all good. Like I can handle it. I'm a man, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, boom, you're just locked into it on the daily, and that grind probably gets pretty intense after a while. One of the things,
it's unavoidable. But
go ahead.
The addiction, it's unavoidable. There's no controlling it, and you can try, but you just can't. And for me being a tattoo artist, because we get paid cash every day,
Oh yeah.
it was much easier for me to, continue a habit. I didn't have to go out and steal or whatever you have to do to try to get money to buy heroin. Each day I made cash, so I'd have a portion. Okay, that goes for my drug addiction.
Yeah. I know for me, and I'm pretty confident there's a lot of other people out there too. There's definitely an interest in, and you've mentioned it a couple times, the gang life, like being a gangster, especially back in the 80s in Los Angeles. We hear a lot about it through music, through media. There was the crack epidemic that invaded Los Angeles in the 70s and late 70s and into the 80s. I think even into the early 90s. Can you kind of talk a little bit about like what gang life was like back then and the reality of it, and that kind of how it affected you, and what was a day like on one of those days when it was just kind of crazy?
Yeah, well, gang mainly, most of my gang activity was during the 70s, and then in the 80s was my drug addiction days. But for me, like a day in the life of a gang member, we had all the gang wars were in full effect. So the main thing is, we'd wake up in the morning, we get together in the neighborhood, we drink, get high, and then we look for something to do. A burglary was a big activity for us. We go into the better neighborhoods, break into homes, and then come back to the neighborhood, see what gang activity we could get into. At Lomas guys are shooting at their houses. It was a hard life. It was risky, and it was dangerous, and always getting shot at. And I had so many homeboys that got killed. Like, I remember during that span, I had 9 of my best friends got murdered in gang activity.
Damn.
And those are your like close friends, So it was the gang life back then, with all the gang wars going on, was very dangerous time, very violent, and very risky. And like I said, I spent most of it, getting arrested and doing time.
Yeah. A lot of us in recovery, we've had to deal, or maybe some of us who are in early recovery are still working it out on building up the courage to deal with some of the, our past hurts, resentments, all that kind of, those kind of old things that can kind of bury themselves in us. And for you, you just said you had 9 homeboys that were murdered. I'm sure there's a plethora of other things, that you can kind of bury down if you're not, communicating and talking about those things. Like, do you think that as you kind of got older, between having friends that, lost their lives, and then all of the other things, that lifestyle that you were living, do you think that was or I guess, how big of an effect do you think that had on your drug use?
I think it had a big, a big effect, because, during those gang days, the whole attitude of, la vida loca, my crazy life, and you just didn't care. I didn't care about anything, I didn't care about other people's lives. I didn't care about other people's property. I didn't care about going to jail. I just didn't care. And then, when I tried to change my life, I really didn't know how, Yeah, I had a job and I was making money, and I was trying to, be a good husband. I failed at that miserably, but, I still had that attitude with me of, I just don't care, So going into a life of drugs and drug addiction, very well could have been a result of that attitude of, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to cuss on your show, but I don't give a bleep,
Yeah. Yeah.
about nothing, which is
Yeah.
the gangster attitude. I don't give a bleep about nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I
so it was easy for me to to be a liar, be a cheater, um, and live a crooked life, and try to portray a person that was living a good life.
yeah. Well, I'll just say the curse word for you because they referred it. I think it was a buddy of mine or someone in rehab when I was in called it a case of the fuckets, and he basically said like I don't care. I mean, just like you're saying, like I have that mentality where I just don't care, and man, that is, you kind of said earlier, that's a tough way to live after a minute, because in your experience, you started going in and out of in and out of jail and prison. I mean, that's a tough life. It's not something that I feel like sometimes it gets it kind of gets glamorized, right? Like, did you ever like feel like that? Like, oh man, this is the kind of the cool thing to do. And I'm not disrespecting you saying that you were just doing it to be cool or anything. I know that was just your life. That's where you grew up. That's what you knew. But do you feel like, especially today, like maybe from a cultural standpoint and the way that media portrays things and music sometimes can portray things, that's like this glamorous lifestyle, and it's not?
Oh, I definitely think when things blew up in the 80s, with all the different gangs, and the black gangs, the Crips and the Bloods, and all the Mexican gangs with the wars they had going on and stuff, I think the media romanticized it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
And made it popular. And then along with with music and things like that, like the whole gangster rap music,
Yeah.
It kind of made it appealing to young people, and so many young people got into it. It was an epidemic in itself. So yeah, it definitely got romanticized. I like the way it's romanticized now. For instance, like the cholo gangsters they have in Japan. They're actually all over the place. It's amazing, and a lot of it's based off the tattoo world. But like Mr. Cartoon and those guys, they go to Japan and they have lowrider shows over there. They kind of take the some of the positive aspects of what we're doing. Our style of dress, our style of walk and talk, our cars, our lowrider cars, and our graffiti art, things like that, and they live those things out. But they're not killing each other.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing.
Let's leave that part out.
They
kind of take the positive aspects, of that lifestyle, the cholo gangster lifestyle, and they're living it out. It's amazing. It's just amazing. In Italy and Japan and all over, they have these like cholos,
I didn't know that, man. I'm gonna have to look that up now because that sounds pretty interesting. It's worldwide.
Yes, it is worldwide, and a lot of it is based off of the fact that our style of tattooing has become one of the more popular styles, the black and gray realism. It was that all came from the Chicano subculture, cholo gangster lifestyle.
So yeah, let's kind of transition into that then, man. And I'm not going to press you for stories and all that stuff, man. If y'all listening want some more stories, there's plenty of them in the book. So you can go and pick up the book at any time if you want to hear more of that. I really want to hear more about the tattoo style that you kind of played a huge role in creating, and then I know guys like Jack Rudy, like Ed Hardy, you worked with those guys. They were some of your friends. You guys kind of almost mentored or worked together. So yeah, I'd love it if you could get into that a bit, kind of how that evolved and then where it's at today.
Okay, yeah, sure. Of course, so being raised in, in the Chicano neighborhood, there was things that were really important to us, images, you know, and being a kid, you know, my father was an artist, and my uncles they were all in prison, and they were prison artists, and so I was, you know, born with art ability, you know, so I kind of became the neighborhood hand poker, you know, tattooing Pachuco crosses and gang slogans on the other homies, and but you know, there's those certain images that were very important to us, like the Aztec imagery. You know, we consider ourselves warriors, you know, and we represented with the Aztec culture because that was part of us.
Yeah.
The revolutionary images like Pancho Villa and Zapata, you know, like, and we love women, you know, so the Chara girl,
Yeah.
you know, the sexy girl with a gun belt and a big sombrero. And then, you know, we were Catholic, so those religious images that our parents and grandparents, you know, loved so much, those images became very important to us.
Yeah.
Jesus and Mary. And is there a noise in the background? Is that okay?
It's one hell of a leaf blower. I don't know what it is, but it's all good, man. Yeah, it's cool. It's not like overpowering or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
So you know, so those images were very important to us. So, you know, and of course, being cholo gangsters and troublemakers and thugs, you know, going to jail and prison was a big part of our lives. Yeah. And in prison, with the prison ingenuity, you know, the Chicanos created an elaborate form of tattooing, you know, with these homemade tattoo machines. You know, in prison, you find, you know, they make anything out of everything, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so these tattoo machines that they break a little motor off a tape player and use a paper clip and a big pen and a sharpened guitar string and make this great working tattoo machine, so great that the machine that's most popular now in the tattoo world is the rotary machine. And basically that design came from prison. And all these young tattoo artists use rotary machines, and it's amazing that they were invented in prison. So anyways, you know, that was my background. And when I was in youth authority, I ended up in this program. It was a lockup program called Tamarack. It was for hardcore YAs, you know, guys that basically there was no more hope for this guy. Yeah. This guy was the worst of the worst and was going to end up in prison. In fact, once you got in trouble and they decided to send you to Tamarack program, they would first send you to Tracy prison for 90 days. And then from there, they'd send you to this like old building up in Preston School of Industry. And it was like the oldest building being used in YA. It was built in the late 1800s. It was a big brick granite building. It looked like a dungeon. But anyways, the staff there, they had a policy for us, you know, of leniency. It's like, look, if you guys don't kill each other, we'll let you tattoo on yourselves. We'll bring you pornography, and we won't search your rooms. Just do not kill each other. That's basically their policy.
Man, that's a crazy policy right there. But it worked, right? I mean, or did it work? I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
It sounds like it did.
Worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
see?
It did work. And then, you know, we got the plans on how to make one of these machines from some of the guys that we were communicating with in Susanville prison. And so with them letting us tattoo, and, you know, that's a situation that's unique in all of the whole prison system. It's funny because when I do interviews and I tell people that story, they're always, you know, like shocked. There's like, well, usually prison tattoo artists will say what a task it is to try to do the tattoo and hide from the prison guards and everything, you know. So here they were letting us do it. So for the next 3 years, I just tattooed every day and got really good. And when I got out, I set up shop immediately in my apartment, and I had seen how tattooing was like really super popular with all the neighborhood guys. And so I started doing tattoos, big old tattoos for like $15. I didn't even know.
Damn, $15.
That was a lot of money back then, though.
Yeah, that's crazy though.
But so this is.
Did you ever tattoo any of the guards?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how good I really got at it, and
wow.
And some of these guards would let me tattoo them, and it was good because then we got more privileges and stuff.
Yeah.
So everybody was cool with that. It's just like, yeah, tattoo them because they'd give us more stuff,
Yeah, it's kind of that give and take, right?
Yeah. So so at the same time that I was tattooing out of my apartment, tattooing mostly all homies and stuff like that. A tattoo shop opened up in East LA called Good Time Charlie's. And what they were doing was they saw a market in East LA for tattoos, but a different kind of tattoo, a tattoo with no color, And one of the guys that worked there was Jack Rudy. His nickname was Güero. And Jack had background, in the neighborhood, so he knew the Chicano lifestyle. He had a lowrider car, and he was a great artist. And he picked up on that single needle, fine line, prison style tattoo look. And they were doing it professionally out of a tattoo shop. So people would come to me all the time and say, "Hey, look at this tattoo I got at this tattoo shop." And I was blown away. I was like, a tattoo shop? Because we hated tattoo shops.
Really?
Because we felt like, professional tattoos were cartoony.
Yeah.
And no detail. What we were trying to do was make things look real, like with detail and gray shading and, and realism. That's what we were trying to do in prison. And all that was developed, from our culture and our prison style. And all of a sudden, they're doing it out of a tattoo shop. So I would do my tattoos, and I would tell people, "Go show this guy Güero, my work." And so then he sent a message to me to go see him. So I went over there to Good Time Charlie's, and Güero was really cool. None of the other guys talked to me, like they were kind of like biker guys,
Yeah.
Like there was no way that they would, the tattoo industry was kind of run by them back then, and there was no way they were going to give like a cholo gangster a job,
Yeah.
But, I was hoping I might get a job there. But anyways, Jack and I hit it off really good. And, we shared ideas. I brought people that I tattooed. I had a folder. When I went in there, I saw my artwork up on the walls, and I was like, "Dude, I drew that." And he's like, "That's what everybody says, that their uncle or somebody in prison did it." I was like, "No," and I had the originals right there, I showed them. Yeah. So anyways, so I went back to doing my thing out of my apartment. Not long after that, Good Time Charlie had quit tattooing. He became a Christian, and he quit tattooing. And Ed Hardy, he had made contact with these guys earlier, Good Time Charlie and Jack Rudy at a tattoo show. And when he saw the black and gray stuff, he was blown away and he fell in love with it. Ed Hardy's thing was he was trying to promote tattooing as an art form. And when he saw what they were doing with the black and gray stuff and the realism, he saw that as a legitimate form of art,
Yeah.
So anyways, he didn't want to see that shop fall into the wrong hands. So he bought the tattoo shop from Good Time Charlie's. And Jack told Ed Hardy about me, and Ed Hardy said, "You know what? We got to get this guy in here. He knows that style. He can relate to these people." And so they hired me. Huh. And then Jack Rudy and I and Ed Hardy, Bob Roberts and Mark Mahoney, we pioneered a brand new style and introduced it. Ed Hardy introduced it to the tattoo world, through the one and only tattoo convention they had once a year, and with publishing. And so a new style was born, black and gray realism. And now it's just bananas.
Yeah, it was totally different now though, right? I mean, compared to I mean, obviously things change, things evolve. You got different ideas and, different people coming into the industry. But I kind of feel like too that it's almost been kind of watered down by all the like shows and, and not that it's not cool to like bring some attention to it, but it just like seems like it's oversaturated, and it's so like sometimes I don't mean to be a dick about this, but like sometimes I'll see a certain person with a tattoo and it's like, oh, that's a cool socially acceptable tattoo. It's just totally different than what it used to be back in the day. Like, how do you kind of see that being in the game for so long?
Well, that's true. I laugh because when I work at Shamrock in West Hollywood, and when somebody comes in and like some business guy or a lawyer or something, and it's just like, I would like this black and gray tattoo, like I'm just amazed, of where it's gone, like, but and I think what it was, like back then for us, like we were showing. We were pushing the envelope, as far as what could be done on skin, and because it was always thought, oh, the only way you can do a tattoo, it has to be bold lines, very simple, and you had to be able to see the whole tattoo from far or whatever, like, and so as time went on, and we were showing that you could do more, and you could do more, and people. Have been doing more and more and more, and it's just mind-blowing, really amazing. Also, the quality of artists, like with computers, like a whole industry, graphic design and illustration was destroyed, and so all these great talented artists that may have been back then doing something else, are finding a pure art form in tattooing. It can never be done by a computer, and so you have a lot more talent into it. And I know it gets it's gotten saturated, and of course, when something gets super popular, it seems like it dies out, but maybe those TV shows have died out. But tattooing, I think, is as popular as ever. Yeah. Because there's still a measure of underworld darkness to it. Yeah. There's the pain factor. You just can't. Not just anybody walk in and get a tattoo. It's funny to see people getting their first tattoo. They didn't realize that it hurts.
It hurts a little bit. Well, man, it's funny. I saw an interview you did. And you had mentioned something at the end. I actually watched it with my wife, and really, really, really awesome work, man. By the way, it's just super cool to kind of watch you work. But one of the things you said at the end, you were saying that kids love tattoos, and like I have a 3-year-old son. His name's Cash, and he loves my tattoos. And this dude will come out like this dude is drawn all over his face, his arms. I'm like, man, I hope like I'm not. He's like, Dad, I love your tattoos. He likes them. We walk by the shop. We live by a couple tattoo shops in downtown here, and he walked by and say. He said, "What's that, Dad?" I said, "That's a tattoo shop." He'll say, "Oh, I want to go get one." And he's 3, but your point was that as long as kids are liking them, man, tattoos are going to be, they're, like you said, even if it gets saturated, diluted a little bit, they're still popular. They're still cool. There's always that element of pain, of kind of darkness to it, and that kind of rebel, almost that little rebel cause to it,
Right. I think that's always going to be there, and you're right. I think what it was that that's when I realized that there was a future in tattooing because, I remember I would go to Disneyland, I'd wear a tank top, and my arms would be all tattooed, and there would be nobody else there with a tattoo. Yeah. And people would back off and look at me and like, oh, wow. Like it was a sight to see a guy, with sleeves,
And you're at Disneyland at the same time. I mean, that's kind of cool.
And, people were standoffish. But the kids would run up and say, "Oh, Mommy, look at the tattoo, man!" And it's just like the kids loved it,
Yeah, that's
and they'd
cool.
be, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. He just says what he. I'm like, nah, it's okay, it's okay. And I'd show him my tattoos and stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was a future in it because the kids loved it, and the way it is now, tattooing's always been popular with the people that like them,
Yeah.
They love them, and it just so happens that more people and more groups of people, different, what would you say, like this professional people,
Yeah.
or these people, rock star people, and like different groups of people, love them, and so tattooing
Well,
has become extremely popular.
you know what's kind of cool about that, man, and I'm just kind of thinking this as you bring that up because it kind of correlates with something I was thinking about before, like your friendship with Jack Rudy, for instance, right? Here you are, Chicano. He's a white boy. I know he's from down there, so he gets the he's got that that environment kind of in him already because he's from there. But at the same time, what I'm getting at is tattoos really bring us together, like from a cultural and from like a racial standpoint, and especially with all this BS like racial division that's going on right now in our country. I really feel that that's kind of a good example of that. Like and I think the media plays that up a bit. I don't want to go down that path too much, but I just feel like tattoos are such a cool way to bring us together because we're all just people. We're all human. Who cares about what color our skin is or where we're from? Like we can share that common thing in some cool artwork and some cool tattoos.
That's an excellent point because, it's like once you start getting tattooed, you become part of a tattoo family, so to speak.
Yeah.
And where you'll never see any kind of racism or any kind of, you see an all-inclusive place is a tattoo convention. These tattoo shows are really popular and they're all over the world, but you'll go and you'll see every kind of person there, and everybody relates to each other.
Yeah.
And, you don't see no color. You see color, the color in somebody's tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, the tattoo family, it's huge and it's multiracial, and it would be a good way to bring. It is a good way.
Yeah,
to,
totally.
To bring peace to this world, because it's amazing and it's worldwide, and Europe, Australia, it's just, I have friends all over the world, they're tattooers and tattoo people, and people from all over the world come and get tattooed by me, and it's with this social media and stuff, and this guy came in the shop. He goes, I just had to come in here and I'm on vacation from Germany. I just wanted to say I follow you on Instagram. He had no tattoo.
Awesome. No way. Oh, he didn't have any tattoos at all.
He didn't have any tattoos. He's just
that's cool.
A guy from Germany here on vacation that follows me on Instagram. So yeah, that's a good point you made.
Well, I want to be conscious of your time, man. I got a couple more questions if that's cool for you, and then we'll wrap this thing up. There's a couple quotes that I pulled from Charlie Cartwright, Good Time Charlie, and Jack Rudy, and I kind of wanted to share those both with you from each of them, and then kind of get your take on them. And the one from Charlie that I saw that really stood out to me, he said, "None of us know if we're going to live tomorrow, so I can't even think past today." And so I know for me, that's huge in recovery, on living, in the moment, and really trying to stay conscious, of where I'm at today and right now, instead of future tripping and getting in my own head. So I just kind of wanted to see what your take on that was.
That's an amazing quote.
Yeah.
Charlie said that?
Yeah, Charlie said that, man. It was in I think it was a YouTube video I pulled up, and it was him coming out of retirement to do one last tattoo session. I can put the link in the show notes too for those out there listening in case you want to check it out. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and Charlie's a really wise man, also, and he's always cool and collective. He's a great guy. Tell me that quote again.
Yeah, he said, "None of us know if we're going to live." And let me put a little context behind this too. Is that what he was saying was somebody had came into the tattoo shop and told him about an idea for a tattoo, and they wanted to get a tattoo. And but they didn't have the money right now, and so they were going to wait till tomorrow or whenever they had the money to get it. And his response to that was he said he kind of laughed because none of us know if we're going to live tomorrow, so I can't even think past today.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Especially back then in East LA.
Yeah.
Where people were gunning for you.
Oh man.
Yeah, but my thoughts on that, it's just an amazing quote that makes a lot of sense. We have to make the most of the moment, and if we focus on where we're at and what we're doing, at the moment, we're going to create a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ain't going to be there.
Yeah.
Because there's a good chance that we might be there.
Yeah.
But, living for the moment in terms of, our recovery and what we're doing, if we could just focus on where we're at and what we're doing and taking care of ourselves now, we're going to create a better tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's real good. Thank you. The other one came from Jack, and this is a real simple one, man. And he just said, you can't take life too seriously. I can kind of feel like, I know you've been through a lot of things in your life, a lot of ups and downs. I mean, obviously I don't even know the half of them, but just from the little bit we've chatted, a little bit that I've got to read about you and watch some of the videos and hear a bit of your stories. You've been through a lot of things in your life, but at the same time, like I get this vibe from you, of a very like seasoned veteran in learning how to kind of deal with emotion and learning how to just kind of relax a little bit. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm sure you have your days, don't get me wrong. But I mean, what's kind of your response to you can't take life too seriously?
Well, that's true. And one of the things I know I know I seem, relaxed and stuff, but since I've been in recovery, everything has changed for me. So,
yeah,
like I said, I had that attitude that I don't give a fuck about nothing attitude.
Yeah. And
when you have that attitude, I think life is easier because you don't worry about anything. I remember I would be at the drug house, trying to find a vein and all this stuff. And I'd have a customer waiting at the shop for me, and I just did not care,
Yeah.
And people would wait sometimes 2 hours for me.
Wow. And
then I'd finally stroll in and say, okay, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, but since I've been sober, I had this desire, to care about things, Yeah. Like, especially like now all of a sudden I stress if I'm late for something, and, but I also still have that inside me to not worry so much, to put things into God's hands. And that's really the biggest part of it is my relationship with God. And so instead of having the attitude of like, I don't care, I'm not going to take this too seriously, it's like, just let God deal with this.
Yeah.
And put things into God's hand, rely on him, and he comes through. He always comes through for me. So, and then, like I said, I worry about this and I worry about that, getting money to pay this, my taxes, all this different stuff, stuff that I would have never cared about before.
Yeah.
But I realized that I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love being sober. I love being a responsible man. I love these things. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It's a good stress.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's a good thing to worry about if we're going to worry about anything, it's just trying to do right and trying to keep our side of the street clean and play our part, as my sponsor would always say, man, just play your part. You're just a small part in a big picture, Okay, so Last question for you, man, and then we'll end this thing today. And I've really enjoyed chatting with you, man, and thank you again for your time. How I got a message just actually yesterday. I came across it, and it had mentioned about they had listened to the show and they felt like I mentioned God too much, right? And I always am very transparent about that. I talk about what works for me. I don't care what anyone else does. If I share something, I hope it can help somebody else out there. We all have individual stories, and so I guess there's two parts to this question. Let me get to it. How big of a role does God play in your recovery and that spiritual connection? And then how do you deal or how do you talk about God to a newcomer? Because it sounded like this message came from a newcomer who was maybe agnostic or maybe having some issues with God. I know that's kind of a complex two-part question, but any thoughts you have on that?
Well, God is everything for me in my recovery, and so much so, and I talk a lot about God when I share at meetings and what have you. So much so that I work at this couple of rehabs with this one. They hire me to lead groups, just spiritual groups,
Yeah.
Because the biggest problem people have when coming into the program is God.
Yeah.
A lot of it because of background. A lot of it because of experience, or, just people have a problem with the whole God thing, So what I try to do is share my story, that part of my story when because of all my years of drug abuse, I had gotten congestive heart failure, and I was, after I got out of prison, I kept using, and I got really, really sick. And then I got arrested, and so on a parole violation and a new case. And I was in the county jail, and I got so sick with the withdrawals, plus my heart condition, that I couldn't even walk. They had me in a wheelchair, and my heart was enlarged to the point where it was almost coming out of the cavity. I couldn't even lay back.
Damn.
I was like certain that I was going to die in there. And then I had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I was in the jail hospital for a couple of weeks, and I was taking all these medications. They sent me back to the county jail. I had another heart attack, and went back for 3 weeks, to the jail ward. The general hospital is near the county jail, and so they would send you over there, the 13th floor. And but you know what? I mean, I was sick, and I remember the doctor telling me, "I just don't see how you can go on without a heart transplant."
Damn.
And I was like, "I don't see how I'll get a heart transplant being a parolee in jail." So, but it was really bad. Anyways, eventually they sent me back to the county jail, and I remember this story. About a king, in the Bible, about a king, and this prophet went to the king and told him, get your affairs in order. Your time is up. You're going to die. He had sinned or whatever. And so the king decided to go over the prophet's head and talk to God himself. And so he asked God for more time, and God gave him 15 more years because he had the faith to go to him and ask. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk to God. And yeah, I prayed. We all pray when we're in trouble. And there's like little formats for prayer, Dear Heavenly Father, whatever. This time I felt different. I was going to talk to God, And in order to be alone, I had to go up these 2 little flights of stairs to the shower room. And I remember climbing up those stairs. It took me like a half an hour because really, I would take a few steps and I would be, I couldn't breathe,
Damn.
I couldn't take any deep breaths at all, and because my lungs were in failure, because my body wasn't getting any oxygen, because my heart. So I got out there and I said, God, I just want to talk to you. I can't make any promises because every promise I've ever made, I've broken. but I'm just asking you for more time so that I won't die in this wretched county jail, so that I could have a chance to redeem myself and be an example to my son. And I felt different, I felt like I really talked to God, and so anyways, but that night I had a rough night. I couldn't sleep, because you can't, when you're in that condition, you can't lay down, because if you lay down, you can't breathe. So you had to stay propped up. But I was having it rough. And then I remember in the morning I had another heart attack, and they're rushing me to the hospital. So, it was kind of like, like in my mind, I was thinking like, a big stamp from God. Boom, your request has been denied.
Man.
And, but something different. When I was on my way to the hospital and they're giving me that nitroglycerin and putting the IVs and everything, I felt different. Like that whole time I was certain that I was going to die in there. And now all of a sudden I felt like I was going to live. And I remember even telling the ambulance driver, you know what? That was the third time he took me to the hospital. And I was like, you know what? You've always been cool. When I get out, I want you to go to Shamrock Tattoo and I'm going to give you a free tattoo. And he goes, I'll take you up on that. I'll take you up on that. And I remember he was telling me, he goes, you have a legitimate reason because so many people with fake illnesses to try to go to the hospital and get better food, So anyways, once I got to the hospital, I was there nearly a month. And but with each day, I was getting better and better. And they had me on all these meds. And I remember when the doctor was saying, you're really improving good. We're going to send you back to the jail. And they sent me back to the jail. I didn't have to be in a wheelchair anymore. All of a sudden, I could lay down and sleep. I even played a little basketball.
Wow.
Did a few push-ups, Like, I was recovering good. And so every week, every Tuesday, they would send me to the hospital to do a checkup, And I remember I was telling the doctor, so when I was doing push-ups, and he was going, you do push-ups? And I was like, yeah, I've been doing push-ups, He goes, how many push-ups can you do? And I was like, well, I started with 1, but I can do 10 now,
Dang.
So then he listens to my heart and stuff, and he goes, you know what, I'm going to have you come back, and we're going to redo all your tests, the echogram, that shot in your spine, that diet, all the heart tests.
Yeah.
And so so I went back the next week, redid all those tests. And then the next week after that, when I got there was a bunch of doctors and interns and stuff there. And they all took turns listening to my heart. And then when they were done, that main doctor that I always see said, you know what? He goes, yeah, you have to excuse all my colleagues here. It's just, we've heard of people's hearts, recovering and repairing themselves, but we've never seen it ourselves.
Wow.
And this is just amazing. When he told me, so then he goes, here, let me show you your chart, Before that, the only thing he ever told me was, I don't see how you can go on without a heart transplant. But now he's going to show me my charts, and so he's showing me, he goes, basically your heart was, enlarged nearly out of the cavity, and it was beating erratically, and you weren't getting any oxygen to your body, and your liver and your lungs were in failure. He goes, now your heart has reduced in size. Oh, and he goes, and it was beating at under 10%. That's as low as you can go.
Dang.
He goes, and now your heart's beating at 30%, which 30 to 70% is normal. He goes, and I told the doctor, I go, you know what? I think God healed my heart and has given me more time.
Wow.
And he goes, well, I think your body healed your heart, and your heart is giving you more time.
That's that science.
Whatever.
He had that scientific perspective. He didn't want to take the spiritual one. But man, that is an amazing story, man. And that I'm kind of writing a couple of little notes as you were telling that, man. But that's one of the things I put is that's a miraculous recovery right there. And I think that's, at least to me, that's proof that God does heal when we pray and when we submit to Him. And you said it earlier, man, God's never let you down. I know for me, God has never let me down, and I'll just continue on that path too, man. Thank you for sharing that story too. That's pretty amazing. And so today, I mean, is everything cool? Like for today, as far as your heart goes and everything's good?
Yeah. And that's been 10 years now.
Damn.
You know, and maybe he's giving me 15 years like that king, but you know, I don't care. It's been the most amazing 10 years in my whole life. I've never, I wouldn't change a thing in my life because of the goodness that I've experienced in these last 10 years of sobriety. Yeah. And, not everybody's going to have, a miracle like that. That was an amazing miracle, that happened in my life. And it's something I think about every day, and I try not to forget, when I go to God in prayer, and I try to share this story. Some people might say, right, that's baloney or whatever. But, other people resonate with that story. Yeah. And they find faith. And, that was one of the key things, if I could just share this real fast.
Absolutely.
What was, I have some Christian background and stuff. And I remember always, it's impossible to please God without faith. If you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, be uprooted and be thrown into the sea. So I always believed that faith was a very important part of pleasing God. And so when I went and had this conversation with God, I tried to have faith, and believe that God was going to do it for me. But it was impossible. How are you going to believe that God's going to heal you like that, Yeah. It was impossible for me to have faith. But I remember on that drive, that in the ambulance, driving to the hospital, something came over me where all of a sudden I believed that I was going to survive and I was going to live. And at the moment that I should have never believed that, because I was having a heart attack, And so I believe that God gave me the faith that I needed. That faith, it's impossible for us to have a good faith, But in those times when we need it, it comes from God as a gift.
Man, that's good, man. That's awesome, man. Definitely a gift, that's for sure. The book, guys, one more time, is Smile Now, Cry Later, Guns, Gangs, and Tattoos, My Life in Black and Gray by Freddy Negrete and Steve Jones. You can pick it up, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all the book retailers online. Also, Freddy, man, it's been an honor, man. I really enjoyed it. I hope I get to come down to the Hollywood area occasionally. Man, if I do that next time, I would love to stop in the shop and check it out and say what's up. I appreciate your time. Anything else you want to add today?
Just my Instagram.
Yeah,
Anybody
yeah,
out there?
absolutely.
If you want to take a look at my work or some of my activities, my Instagram is Freddy_Negrete. So that's FREDDY _Negrete, NEGRETE. And if anybody wants to look into getting tattooed or anything, you just call Shamrock Tattoo at 310-271-9664 and book an appointment. I'm always there. I'm a workaholic now, man. I work 6 days a week, I'm really focused in on my work and my tattoos, and I love what I'm doing, so I do it all the time.
That's awesome, man. There's nothing better than waking up every day and actually enjoying what you do, man. So congrats to you on that. And, congrats on being clean and sober. And thank you so much again for sharing your story today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, bro. It's been great.
Yo, thanks for tuning in today. It's a beautiful day to be sober. Go to thatsoberguy.com for more information. Keep your blood clean.